Hey everybody, it's Alex Jarett with Technology Executives Club, and you're listening or watching a new edition of our Technology Executives Review Highlights Edition. This is what we call the Highlights Edition. This is a video show and podcast. During the show, I'll show you where to get everything if you want to watch the videos at our website or the podcast. And I'm Alex Jarett, your host and founder of Technology Executives Club, and of course, Technology Executives Review, which is the name of our show. And it's brought to you by Technology Executives Club. And our mission is to promote and empower technology executives, technology industry executives, and their companies. So we appreciate you all being here. I want you all to think of us as HGTV for technology executives and technology industry executives. When you see our website, you'll get that. And we'll help you and your company enhance your executive brand, expand your network, and grow your business. And if you get involved as a board of advisor, otherwise, we're just happy to have you here and listen and learn from our board of advisors. And we've got some great ones today that I'm going to share some insights from. And you can see all the videos we talk about today at our website, technologyexecutivesclub.com. And if you look up Technology Executives Review, if you look up Technology Executives Review at either Spotify or Apple, you'll find our podcast, and it's the same content either way. Again, that's at Apple or Spotify, and you can go to our website. There's a link to the podcast from there as well. While you're at the website, don't forget to join our complimentary Insiders Club, and there's all kinds of goodies that we give you just to be on our subscription list. So we appreciate that. Again, if you want to get involved and be a regular on our media network, then reach out and ask us about our Board of Advisors program. And the Board of Advisors is the Board of Advisors to the community. And book a discovery call on our site. So thanks for listening to that introductory commercial, and let's get started. So today we've got some great folks that are on our Board of Advisors that have shared some of their hard-earned wisdom with them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some of the content with them and show you how to watch the whole thing. We got Tony Sabaj, who's from the Office of CTO and CyberSecurity Evangelist at Checkpoint Software. He's got a couple more titles, but that's the one relevant to this show. Tom Drez, who's former CIO, Christian Brothers Services, lessons learned from a career as a top CIO. He's got a couple other, he's also CISO and a couple other things that he did there. And that's part two. I'll show you, we're going to watch the whole thing again, but if you were on our last show, you probably saw part one. It was great. Anaf Durani, who is this is also part two, VP of Engineering from Grainger, great company. And I call this talk the keys to career growth in technology, and also how to sort of work with some of your people. Leadership is a big topic that we talk about a lot, technology leadership. It's obviously very important, and we talk about that a lot as well. And a bonus segment, I'm repeating the one I did a couple weeks ago, technology executive branding tips. And the more I do this with people that are in the tech field, the more important it seems to become, because technology executives, for the most part, are the last to the party, I think, on this. And so it's really a great opportunity if you are a technology executive or a technology industry executive to really get involved and grow your executive brand. I can give you some tips on how to do that. All right, let's get started. We're going to get right into the first presentation with Tony Sabaj, who's Office of the CTO, works at the Office CTO and Cybersecurity Evangelist. He also runs all the channel partners for the company. And he's at Checkpoint Software. And he's very bright guy. And I think you're going to enjoy this particular presentation. So let me show you where to watch all this. So if you go to our site or listen, if you go to our site, which is technologyexecutivesclub.com, on the top nav bar, you'll see Board of Advisors, Technology, TE Review videos, as well as the podcast. And that's really links to the Apple and Spotify. You can listen there if you want to. So if you go into the Board of Advisors area, which is where these videos I'm going to play are from, you'll see we have a ton of Board of Advisors. Not a ton, we have a number of Board of Advisors that each have their own lane. You can see all the different people here. And each of them has their own landing page. And I'm just going to click right to Tony and just get right to it. Where'd he go? Must have just passed it up. Oh, it's right here. Tony's page, and you'll see the interviews right there. Here's the full landing page, and if you want to connect with Tony, just connect right there through his LinkedIn profile. Anyways, that's Tony, and what I'm going to do is just test this out real quick. Tony's, and we'll go from there. All right. So I'll just go ahead and click it and let you listen to it. And then I'll be back in about 10 minutes. And I think you'll enjoy this segment. And he starts off with a little about his background. And then he gets into a story, which I think is really interesting, when he first learned about social engineering, which is, I won't steal any of the thunder from his story, but just watch this. It's really interesting.
We'll go over your other background, but just real quickly, how do you get an opportunity like that where you can literally be out and be almost like a spokesperson for one of these international major company and talking about what's actually happening and helping inform people about what's actually happening in cybersecurity? That's such a cool job.
Yeah, it's always been kind of ever since I started at Checkpoint, and I've been at Checkpoint for almost 22 years to the date.
Yeah.
Now. And, I started off working, in the field and just the Chicago area, and, have moved on and done a variety of different roles, but I've always done a lot of the conferences and speaking and, fairly good at it. So it was always kind of part of my role. And then, a few years ago, we sort of formalized this role. So there's about, 70 of us worldwide that are part of this organization, throughout Europe and Asia and the Americas, that get a chance to do this. And what's really cool about it is one of the things that I really love about Checkpoint, besides the technology and the company, is really the people. Some of the smartest people I've ever met. So we get a chance to really collaborate with a lot of our research groups and a lot of our developers that are really on the cutting edge of cybersecurity, and especially our research department, which has nothing to do with developing Checkpoint products. They're just doing security research, and really, like, some of the stuff they do is amazing, and we get to interface with them, take some of their stories and some of the things that they've learned and tie them to the security industry in general. So I've done talks on cybersecurity for teens and kids and community. So it's not just business to business type thought leadership. It's also consumer and reaching back to the community, and we do a lot of events that way. So it's fun. I've spoken at ISSA events, I've spoken at large conferences, and it's fun to be a part of it. And you really get to meet a lot of really good people, and I've made some really good contacts doing that role. And it's fun because I get to work with really smart people, which is always
sounds like it. Sounds like a lot of fun. So good for you. Well, we're thrilled to have you involved. This is going to be a really easy interview because you've got you've had like three main jobs, three companies that you work for. Although you did tell me at college you worked for a law firm for a lawyer and had a lot of fun helping him. But let's start with that real quickly. You were at St. Joseph College. You actually had a combo degree, which I got to say, I'm not going to say the date, I got to say was unusual to get marketing and computer science together. You did marketing and computer science.
Yeah,
that was kind of progressive.
It's funny because I couldn't decide when I went to college. I'd always done technology as kind of a hobby. I remember I was even as 12, 13 years old. This will super date me, but my mom ran an adult education program through the local school district in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and she was teaching classes to adults in the evening on AppleWorks. If you remember AppleWorks, the original Apple, Office suite, word processing, spreadsheets and word processing and some very minor database stuff.
That was like a year before Office probably showed up, as I preach.
Oh yeah, it was well before Office, but yeah.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Even at 12 years old, my mom would pay me, basically allowance, but she would pay me, and I would actually go help her teach the classes, and I'd run around at 12, 13 years old, helping, what I thought at the time were senior citizens, but they were probably my age now, helping them learn, how to use AppleWorks and word processing, and just like basic computer skills when not everybody had a computer and they didn't even know how to turn them on, let alone, do word processing and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of fun. So I've always been involved in technology. I always, like the marketing aspect of it, although I'm not inclined with, physical art. I always said that I wanted to do advertising without the art, which I didn't know that was marketing.
It's
at
called
the
a
time.
headline.
Yeah. So when I went to college, I started off as a marketing management major, and I took a couple of computer classes because I'm like, I've always liked computers, and I had a computer in my room,
Yeah.
connected to the internet in the early 90s.
Wow.
So it was kind of cool. The school I went to was small, but very progressive from a technology perspective. We had a partnership with Purdue, which was one of the supercomputing schools. So we had really good technology for a small school. So I started taking like some programming classes, and the professor's like, hey, you're actually pretty good at this. You should become a computer science major. And then the business department was like, well, you don't want to switch your major. So I'm like, I'll just do both. So it was fun. So that's kind of how I fell into it. And then, I was working, as you said, I was working for a lawyer all throughout college doing a number of things. And, kind of a funny story there that I'll relate to, like a lesson learned is he was a litigator. So it was kind of boring cases.
Yeah.
And he had a case where he had to serve like 45 subpoenas. And I was working for him. He was paying me well at the time, but at this point, I had no intention on going to law school. So I was, not a pre-law major or anything, but
yeah.
My aunt was his secretary. So that's kind of how I got the job. But it was right downtown.
You were the muscle
Chicago.
serving subpoenas.
Yeah, that's right. It was right downtown on LaSalle Street in Chicago, for those of you who know, a couple blocks from, the Daily Center where the big courthouse is. And I had to deliver subpoenas, and I didn't know how expensive process servers were. So, the lawyer gives me a stack of subpoenas. He's like, here's how you have to serve subpoenas and see how many of these you can serve. So I spent like 2 months serving subpoenas, and I brought the subpoenas back to him. Like, oh, here's 2 I couldn't serve. And he's like, well, where's the rest? I'm like, oh, I served them all. And he's like, oh, do you have any idea how much a process server costs? It's like $1,000 a subpoena. So he's like, you just saved me like $50,000. So, which I'm sure he billed his client for anyway, but that's a different story. But there was one case where I had to serve a lawyer, and I relate this back to cybersecurity all the time. And lawyers can smell a subpoena from a mile away. I don't know how they do it. So I would show up to the office and be like, oh,
and they would run. They go out the back door.
Is so-and-so in their office? And they're like, no. They're like, okay, I'll wait. I'd wait. And of course, they would never come out. So for, 2 weeks, I would go to this office every day. Same receptionist, same, secretary, answering my questions every day, saying, no, this person's not in, this person's not in. So
hilarious.
At the time, I was in college, and I had long hair. So I used to pull it back in a ponytail. So I had long, heavy metal hair. I was in a heavy metal band.
Immediately jealous. Right,
and so one day, and instead of showing up in a suit and tie like I would go to work every day,
I
showed up in t-shirt and jeans, and I carried a tool bag with me. There was no tools in it. There was actually a subpoena, and I took my hair out of the ponytail, so I had it hanging down, looked like a and went to the same person I've been going to for 2 weeks. She didn't recognize me, and I'm like, oh, I'm here from the building to go to so and so's office to change light bulbs, because the city of Chicago, so you can't change your own light bulbs. And so I walked into his office, and sure enough, he was there. And I pulled out the subpoena, and I said, "Oh, you've been served." And then I walked out of the building.
Did you change any light bulbs while you were there?
I did not change any light bulbs.
There's a subpoena. If you need a light bulb changed, I'll fix it for you.
I got out of there as fast as I can, and I tell that story even today because it's it talks about social engineering and how the weakest link in any security program is usually the people.
It's the same thing.
People talk about, you see it on TV, people, hacking firewalls or, computer systems. It's just much easier to fool a person than it is to actually attack, someone, digitally. So it's just much easier to find a gullible person and get in. And that's where you talk about, phishing or, giving up passwords or sensitive information. So it's kind of a fun story from, when I was, 19, 20 years old.
That's really interesting. So that was kind of, it's interesting. You were kind of building up to this career, but maybe didn't know where you were headed. That's an interesting lesson.
For a fleeting second, I thought maybe I wanted to become a lawyer. And then I worked for this lawyer for about half a summer. And I'm like, I like this job, but I'm not doing this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then you went, here's where.
All right. So that was a good story. I wanted to hear 2 things in that segment. One was sort of how he fell into this role, because you always meet these people that are evangelists, and he does more than evangelism at the company, but it's just pretty interesting. But he's an expert in cybersecurity because because of what he's been doing for so many years, and I think that story really highlights the importance of training and knowledge of your team and everything and the whole company, because you could have the best cybersecurity system in the world, and he's basically saying that if somebody gets fooled, then you can break through. And he tells more stories, and he also in the interview tells some what they see a lot. There's just two main patterns or main significant issues that they see whenever they go visit a lot of companies, and they visit a lot of companies. So to watch that interview, you'll go to the site, you go to Board of Advisors. The site again for the listeners is technologyexecutivesclub.com. You'll go to the Board of Advisors section, and then you'll look for Tony Sabaj, spelled Sabaj, and you'll click on that, and then you'll be able to watch his video or listen to it. And again, you can do the podcast as well, Technology Executives Review. So let's move on. That was Tony, and I thought that was a great segment. And by the way, each interview is about 30 to 45 minutes. That's why I can't put them all in one show. This is the highlight show. But we do put all the individual segments on the videos and on the podcast, and you can watch them all. They're the ones that are interesting to you. Now I'm going to switch over to somebody else, Tom Drez, who is a former CIO, also a former CIO, CISO, and a lot of other roles that he played at Christian Brothers Services. And many of you in the Chicago area know Tom. He's a great guy. He's been networking for years, has a big network that he has built, and he's a really terrific guy, very bright business person who happens to be in the IT side. And I call his discussion Lessons Learned from a Career as CIO. And so let's get to him. Same area. You're going to go to the technologyexecutivesclub.com, go to Board of Advisors, and you'll scroll down. We move them around a little bit where the boxes are, but you'll see Tom, and you can click
They're in the middle. Maybe they're
click on Tom, and I will let you watch that. You can see a little bit about his background. Again, connect to him if you want. But let's get to it. I'm going to turn this on, and then I'll see you in a little bit.
Towards the end of the career, and they're thinking, oh, what am I going to do next? But, what are some tips? And you say life is relationships, and I've seen you, do that in person, but how do you look at relationships and, and do you treat your employees differently or, cause you've got that, like, how do you, what are your thoughts on that? I've seen you.
First is, hey, I'm an IT guy, right? That's how I started. I would, when people ask me, I actually say I am an introvert. People don't believe me when I say that.
I wouldn't believe that. I
am an introvert who has forced myself to become an extrovert to further myself and business, right? Because life is relationships. It is people talking to each other. I mean, it's not like I'm making deals out on a golf course or something like that, but that's a form of relationships as well.
Absolutely.
But I would say, so I look for all those opportunities to get out from behind this desk. I don't spend much time really in my office. Most providers that I work with, they've never even been in my office. I'm going to meet them out and about somewhere, but I look for those opportunities. Technology Executives Club, perfect example, right?
You were always there. Yeah.
Peer group. We're not competing with each other. Everybody shares the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if I were to boil down what tech is, it's two things: relationships and content. Period. That's it.
That's
so
nice. Yeah, I'll use that short. So that's but relationships. But the thing is about you, and I appreciate that you came to every event, almost every event that you could, either you or somebody else, when we were doing nothing but events, and it was awesome, and I'm grateful for that. And you shared and you spoke. But in terms of what is your sort of lesson learned in terms of dealing with people, that are internal, that work for you? How do you, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so relationships, people follow on relationships. People are your most important asset. It's like that chicken and an egg question for any company is, which comes first? You focus on the customer or the employee? I mean, you can make a case for both, but without customers, you're not going to have employees. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of uh, coaching and mentoring and
I know you are.
encouraging
Yeah.
employees to get out and to learn and to provide for education. Of course, not all education can happen on company time. Everybody needs to have some personal
Yeah.
responsibility and take it upon themselves to learn outside of the work environment as well. But as a chief, as a manager, those are chiefly responsibilities is to take care of your team that takes care of the rest of the employees in the company, and those rest of the employees take care of the customer.
Yeah. That's great. Well, let's switch gears a
Yeah,
little. The other thing
sure.
that I've seen, listen to you, for those of you who don't, I've had the pleasure of listening to Tom talk about his business over the years also. And, for somebody that started in as the head of what you call data processing or
Computer
what was
services
computer
manager.
services. Yeah, that was kind of
Right.
forward thinking back then. You
Yeah.
know, you know, I've listened to your story and um, you've done two major things that I've heard of that, we would do all these big conferences and I would study Gartner and Avant and all these different companies like what HMG, like what they were talking about the conferences. And you were out there doing it. Like number one, you did digital transformation. That's a never ending thing,
Right.
but you did it and you actually did the whole shift to the cloud early on.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big shift. I would say that digital transformation shift to the cloud, not just lift and shift, but actually shift to the apps to
Right.
the cloud and some of the ways you were doing business. And the other thing that I've seen you do, which was intriguing to me, is that you actually opened up a service center to the Christian Brothers. You became part of your business was a profit center, right, or a service center?
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Right. So CBS, for everybody who doesn't know what CBS is, it's Christian Brothers Services. The website is
Uh-huh.
cbservices.org. And we focus on providing healthcare coverage, property and casualty coverage, retirement uh, services, plans, and consulting to Catholic organizations. And there are, 200,000 employees. But, we have services in our name here. So if anybody organization comes to us with a need, think of it as any management
Yeah.
or business type of need, we try not to say no, right? We're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We
Yeah.
exist to serve Catholic organizations and the Catholic Church overall. So we try never to say no. And if it's something, even if it's something we've never done before, we try it. Like you just mentioned, we provide IT and website services now to outside customers. So it's not just, most people think of IT, it's an internal corporate
Yeah.
support division, right? Just an expense that needs to be managed. And that's true. There's always going to be IT expense management pressures.
Yeah.
But when outside customers are asking for assistance, well, we are a service company, so we say yes. How can we help? And try never to say no. And so that's great. And that's also a good experience for our IT employees because it gives us more experience. We see what our customers are doing. That keeps us current on what's going on out in the marketplace or out in the world. That's real world knowledge and experience that we
Yeah.
can also apply to the business units within Christian Brothers Services.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, what I heard there was you're listening to the customers and you're trying not to say no and trying to be responsive. That's a very, I've heard it over and over again from people that are experts saying this is what you need to do, but I haven't heard everybody saying we do it all the time. In fact,
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of people saying, boy, we can't get the company to act like that. We can't get the IT department. I had another interview with somebody who turned their IT department around. It was Bill. And he was talking about how when he took over IT, they call it the Department of No.
Right.
And he changed that. And you started off by making the Department of Yes, how can we do it? And I think that was very insightful. The other thing that I want to switch gears on then
Mhm.
switch to is knowing you've spoken for me on a lot of different topics, and you talked about strategic planning, and you've talked about your project, your project management governance model, where you
Yeah.
have the committee, where you work
Mhm.
with the business and make decisions. And you've made it seem, I always told people, listen to Tom's presentation about how he does project portfolio management with the company, because it was like textbook the way you created it. But I know just from talking to a lot of people, you made it look really easy. Oh
It's one
yeah,
of those
this
things
is all
that
we do.
evolves.
We just have this forum. We have this committee that meets every month. It's not a big deal. I mean, when you describe it, it's like,
Yeah.
why is everybody all stressed out? How did you
Oh,
do that? You know, I asked you this once, and I think what you
yeah.
said, it was kind of the product of your environment, that
evolves.
everybody was
Yeah.
collaborative there.
Right.
that-
Well, and even back at that time, I was probably already at CBS for 25 years or so, right?
Yeah.
So I think necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yeah.
So, back in the old days, I mean, companies only have a finite number of resources for
Right.
software development, people and dollars. And here at CBS, we have all these business units. Healthcare is half of our business. And then you got risk management services, property casualty, retirement, and then more. Everybody has priorities.
Right.
Here at Christian Brothers, everybody's sure we're one company, but every business unit is functioning on its own. They just share customers and corporate support divisions like IT, HR, finance, marketing, and communications. So, but as long as when the company is growing, right, and luckily here at CBS, we've always been fortunate enough to continue to grow as we serve our customers and work to meet their needs. That just means more projects come, and that's even we're a buy instead of build organization, but we're into so many different things. We still have to connect all of our systems together.
Yeah.
We write the glue or put the plumbing together that that feeds, for example, the website. When a customer logs in, hey, we treat them with one electronic relationship. They don't need to know that this information comes from 10 or 12 different systems behind the scenes. So we have to write all the glue that ties everything together. But then we're also involved in product searches. We're looking for a new policy administration system here or a new accounting system here. So we want to be involved in all of those right from the start. So there's a lot of different things going on. So when it comes to, you call it the project portfolio, a lot of times that door right behind me over there, I'd have managing directors in here. Healthcare would come in. These are my 10 top A1 priorities.
Yeah.
And then after he leaves, then the managing director from property and casualty would come in. These are my 10. These are all A1s, not even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10. These are all A1.
Yeah.
And
Come on.
not the one business unit can't have all A1s, and then let alone all the business units. So you need some way, right, to prioritize these to help a business unit see how they fit in, how their projects fit in within their own, give them some ammunition to working with their own staff, right? Show them that these are not all A1s, and then put it in the context of what's going on across the entire company, because everybody's, to a degree, is competing for resources. Nobody ever, I don't care what company you are, even an IBM or a Google, nobody has unlimited resources. So everybody, and especially here, we're charged with being good stewards of our resources, working with Catholic organizations.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be wasteful of anything, not a piece of paper, not a 15 minutes of somebody's time, not anything. So what we did, just real quickly, is come up with a way where I didn't have to play King Solomon with all the managing directors coming into my office. Wanted to create a process that was sustainable, right? And so what we did was, there's project requesters, business analysts in each business unit. When they write up a project and put it into the system, they can identify the benefits. So right there, that's it. Identify the benefit. And our project goes for, I don't know, what is our strategic plan for the company has, 3 or 4 strategic objectives. Hey, if you're going to hit one of those objectives, big points. So if you're going to hit 2, 3, or 4 of those objectives, big points. That's going to bubble your project up to the top. One kicker is if you collaborate with another division. Healthcare wants to work with retirement because they both deal with people. Big project, big points for collaboration. And then there could be a whole laundry list of items from improving customer service to improving operational efficiency and effectiveness, lots of other points. Hey, you put that all in there, these projects just scored themselves and in order. No longer does one business unit have 10 A1s, and no longer does the company have 50 A1s. They all fall in line.
I know, and you've put together a really elegant,
Yep.
very
Well,
elegant,
yep.
a very elegant model. And sometimes the simplest models are the hardest ones to create. And I think
Yes.
you all did it.
So that goes on. He talks a little more about that, and then he talks about the role of the CIO in the company and some other areas that he talks about. So if you want to watch that, you'll go to, again, technologyexecutivesclub.com, Board of Advisors, and you'll look for Tom Drez. Here's his, for those of you on the video, here's his area here. You click on that. And
I agree, because a lot of times
you can watch the whole video. That's great. It's also on the podcast, and I'll show you, for those of you watching, it's on the podcast, and there's links to Apple and Spotify. Just for example, click on that. That takes you to Apple. There's Spotify, and takes you to Spotify, and then you can see, you scroll down until you find the one that you want. Okay? So that's that. All right, let's get back to it. And that was a great segment. Let's go to the next one. That was Tom Drez. This one is Anaf Durani. Anaf is the VP of Engineering at Grainger. He's a really great guy also. I really enjoyed this conversation with Anaf. I call it the key. He talked about a lot of things, but I call it this one, the keys to career growth and technology. And also listen to what he says is the common element for success. He actually teaches two things in this clip. One is how he's able to jump from one amazing job to another, which I think it's a great secret that not really a secret, but just a tip that he shares. And the second is what he has found is the common denominator of every job he's ever had. He's had a lot of different awesome jobs. So let's get to that. Again, you'll go to technologyexecutivesclub.com, go to Board of Advisors, look for Anaf, and where we put him, here he is.
Really appreciates your business.
And let's get started.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So what's interesting about your journey, again, I keep coming back to that because I am very impressed, actually, but you then went from engineering, you said you took a break, but really what you did is you learned the business, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And you'll see this throughout my career where I've weaved into different types of responsibilities, and I've gotten comfortable with taking on roles that I just may not have the depth of experience in, but the agility to just scale into those type of roles and get to the level of expertise and depth has been something that I'm feeling I would say I've conditioned myself to become more comfortable with. And that's been the case with every role that I've taken. It's always been something different, and that's helped me because just being open to change is a big deal, right? And being comfortable with it is a big deal.
Yeah.
So not being afraid to learn something different has helped me in my career.
And that's a great insight. And what I'm hearing from you is that you're learning on the job, so you don't let your fear slow you down. You yes, you jump in and you learn on the job and you do it. That's great.
Yeah.
It shows a lot of confidence, which is awesome.
Well, I mean, and thank you. I appreciate that. What it also does is it allows me to take, things that I've learned in the past, and although they may not apply 100% back to the current responsibility that I have, but it gives me a different perspective on how to solve problems and how to think about problems. And ultimately, if you just take, if you think about, anyone's career, right? It doesn't matter if it's mine or anyone's, but the common denominator is your interaction with people, and how people react to certain things, to change, right? And what motivates people. And so that's the other thing that I've learned is that being in different roles has given me perspective to understand how people actually behave and think.
You're starting to talk about people, and the more I talk and do these interviews and talk to people, the more I've realized that the IT role, the CIO role, the head of development, product engineering role. It's really a people business that
Yep.
uses technology, that uses math, right? But it's still at the end of the day a people business. Is that?
Yeah, no, I would say that's 100% true. It's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was, I had the opportunity of visiting Microsoft's campus, and we were
Yeah.
there for a business review. And one of the things that they had mentioned was they're trying to build an environment where people can learn, thrive, and grow. Basically, at the end of that, make a difference, right? And I've taken that on as well as part of just my interactions with my team. It's trying to understand what motivates them personally and professionally. How can we build an environment for them so that they can, in fact, thrive, learn, grow, make a difference, right? And
Yeah.
that's different from maybe 5-10 years ago, where it's all about the output, right? And today it's more than the output. It's also about the person, right? So that's been a change in the way that I've been thinking about how we interact as leaders with people and how we lead teams, right?
Another huge insight. We'll come back to that one because I think that's we'll expand on that in the lessons learned segment. So let me just wrap this part up, which is your background. So you jumped over to Cigna Insurance Company, DevOps, software defined. It says you support a hybrid multi-cloud environment. What was the big aha at Cigna? Because you were there, God, you were there for 7 years, so you did a lot there.
Yeah. I think the big aha or the what I learned at Cigna is that Cigna what's interesting about Cigna is it's a Fortune 12, many acquisitions, right? And so there's many types of systems. You have all types of technology, and every as much as you think that problems can be solved the same way, they need to be solved differently, right? Right. And so a colleague of mine, when we went out to Thailand once on a business trip, he used to say to me, it's the saying in Thailand was same but different. It may be the same, right? The approach may be the same, but the implementation is a little bit different, right? And the way you execute, the way you solve those problems are a little bit different. And being open to understand, or just being cognizant to understand that your approach needs to vary based on what you have in front of you. And the problems is just not people, right? It's also process and technology, right? Bringing all of that together, right? And solving a problem might be a little bit different from problem to problem. And so, or from team to team, or from organization to organization. But the ultimate goal is the same, right? Our vision at Cigna was to improve the health and well-being and the peace of mind of those we serve. And that was our mission. But if you double click into that, right? And you can think about that mission, it's like a personal mission, right?
Very deep. Yeah.
But if you double click in there, right, it's all about reducing, it's also about reducing the cost of healthcare. And the work that we did within DevOps, CI/CD, automation was really driving a means by which we can reduce the cost of healthcare, right? And so a lot of lessons learned there, right? Different experiences with different types of teams. Even the acquisitions that we made, with Express Scripts at the time, very different culture coming in, interacting with them, knowing the fact that they're also smart people, right? But they think a little bit differently. So let's understand that. And how do we bring the best of both worlds together? It was a work in progress.
That's really cool. I love how you tied the mission to a 2-year role.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. And your team's role. And then we'll just wrap it up here. But you were a ticket master for a little bit, and folks, he jumped from director at Cigna to vice president of engineering, at Ticketmaster, which was a big move because Ticketmaster is worldwide. It's everything you've been on for a while has been worldwide and pretty big, but in terms of impacting people. But then you jumped over to Grainger, obviously for the opportunity, because Grainger is such a cool, you had such a cool company. Now since November 2020, you've been VP of Product Engineering at Grainger. And tell me why you made the move to Grainger, what you do, and then what we'll do is once we finish that, we'll jump into the lessons learned. How's that?
Yeah, sure. At the time at Ticketmaster, everything was shut down.
Yeah.
And there were a few things that are happening that I felt that it was probably best for me to look for another opportunity. And at the time, Grainger had tapped me on the shoulder, and I just took the opportunity to have him take a phone call and then meet with our CTO, Johnny Leroy, who I felt that I can work with and I can learn from. And we went through the process. I mean, I think ultimately, if you think about what Grainger is all about, being one of the top companies, employers to work for, right? And you see this like award being granted over the past couple of years. And then you see diversity being a focal point. You see focus on women in technology. All these different things come together that makes Grainger a great place to work. But then beyond that, I found that there was alignment between leadership all the way down to the people like me who are trying to figure out what we need to do next. And so that was another motivating factor. And every conversation that I had with the folks that I brought in over the last 2 years, one of the things that I always point out is the fact that there is alignment between leadership and us, right? And that's a big deal if you really think about it. If you can get alignment with your leadership, even the board of directors, that we have to make progress and we have to change the way we work and the way we do business, right? At the end of the day, that's what a digital transformation is.
Yes.
And that's a big deal, right? And so that's that was a motivation for me. That's been a motivation for a lot of folks that joined us afterwards as well.
Yeah.
So that was another, I mean, this interview was really incredible. I learned so much from Anaf, and you can just see by the way he communicates, the way he talks, and what's important to him, that he's really aligned with the people around him and the corporate mission and the people on his team and how that all ties together, and the customer. And I love his whole spirit about taking on one challenge from one challenge to the next and understanding that the common denominator is the people. And it's a very insightful interview. So I urge you to listen to it or watch it. We'll do another segment on it, probably the next show. But I urge you to watch the whole thing because it's really great. And again, that is technologyexecutivesclub.com. Go to our board of advisors, and then you'll click on Anaf Durani, who is the VP of Engineering at Grainger. And you can watch that.
Well, for those of you who haven't looked at,
you can watch that entire really great interview. Or again, you can go to the podcast, which is on both Apple and Spotify. So that's that segment. Let's get to the next one. That was great. And I think it goes by the way, the show goes by pretty fast, doesn't it? For those of you who are on the LinkedIn Live or listening to this on the podcast or watching this, it goes by pretty fast. What I want to do now is what I call a bonus segment and technology executive branding tips from me, your host. And I'm just going to I hope you don't mind if you were on the one a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to repeat the one I did a couple of weeks ago because a couple of people asked me, so they had missed it, even though I recorded it. I'm just going to do it again. And then next time I'll have some more tips. And we're actually putting together a page on our website where all these short little tips on executive branding will be there for you. And maybe we'll put it all together and do a course that I'll just give you all, or something in the podcast. But in the meantime, let's get to it. And I want to talk a little about enhancing and expanding your executive brand. And this is one of those areas that, I've always been involved in development and sales as an owner, sales and marketing really, but involved in the technology world. And I've been involved in a couple different companies myself, and then moved into sales and marketing. And so marketing, it was always something that I've been close to, but expanding your executive brand was something I actually just fell into. And so everything that I teach is not only going to be what I learned, but I really got into it and did a study of it. And without telling you the whole story, when I was always involved in doing conferences and events in this company, we started in 2001. We've been doing conferences and events since that period. And right before the pandemic, I was doing 18 conferences and events across the entire Midwest. And of course, when the pandemic hit. We couldn't do those anymore. And so I really started focusing on my executive brand. And traditionally, in B2B, that's not traditionally, in B2B, that's on LinkedIn. And I'm in a couple other areas as well now, but that's what it is. So a lot of this, what I'm going to teach you is some of the research that I already done about marketing, but also really, when I go and get involved in something, I really study it. I communicate with a lot of people. We share what's learning, create masterminds around it, which I've done in this group area, in this area also. And so there's 4 topics, real short, that I want to talk about and share with you. One is the age of influence and authority. One is why your network matters, and why in-person's no longer enough. For a long time, people thought, just go out and network in person. Yes, you still should do that. I always recommend that. But in person is not enough. And you can now network with people all over the country and all over the world. And you may never see them in person. Hopefully you will at a national conference or something, but you may not. The other thing I want to share with you is what I call the era of the technology spokesperson, and or the company spokesperson if you're an internal executive. And real quickly, the key benefits of focusing on not only your brand, but your network. So let's get through this, and I'll go through this pretty quickly. We've entered the age of influence and authority, and I think people have known for a long time about the use of celebrities, and like it or not, we've all kind of been trained, and we like celebrities, and I do. I mean, I admit it, and the funny thing is that we've also been trained to listen to them when it comes to endorsements and to buy from them. And celebrity endorsements was something that has been around for a while. Gosh, I'm currently in Chicago, and if you just think about the 80s, I think it was the 85 Bears, how many of those Bears showed up at car dealers later for just the regular guys, let alone the superstars that were on that team that showed up for bigger endorsements? And even if you look at that's at the local level, and no matter what city you're at, you see the same thing. That's at the local level, but at the international level, we see Jennifer Garner, Kevin Hart, all these different celebrities. I follow tennis. All the current and recent tennis players are doing Rolodex. And Kevin Hart and Jennifer Garner are selling credit cards. I mean, no offense to them, because they're probably very smart people, obviously. But what do they really know about personal finance? But we're listening to them, and we're trained to do that. And there's a fellow named, he's still alive, and he's a professor, Robert Cialdini. You should read his material. And he created a concept called influence. The phrase influence marketing came from him. So we've known about celebrities, and that's evolved to influence. And I'm going to talk a little about authority too. But influence is something that is a little newer. And so in this book, Influencer, he's actually the one that coined the word influencer in our current use. Without reading the paragraph, I think we all kind of know intuitively about influencers. But what you may not realize is that you can be a micro influencer, and a smaller, you just have a group of 8, 9, 10,000 people that are following you, and you can become what's known as a micro B2B influencer. And the whole point is that people do use celebrities and influencers. We listen to them, and people listen to me. Believe it or not, I became a micro B2B influencer kind of by default, and then I started studying it. It's very interesting, so I can help my community. It's really, I'm doing it as a way to help both sides of the coin of my community. And that's a very interesting thing. The other part of this is authority. And the story I like to tell, there's a couple stories I tell. I don't have time to tell all of them now in this one, but the one that really drives home is, let's say you have like a 25-year-old male, and he's, the same person will be in both stories, but you see him, and you're at a traffic at a stop sign, and he walks in front of you, and he's got long hair, disheveled, carrying a couple bags, and you can see maybe he looks a little bit distressed, but that's his look. Maybe he's homeless, maybe he's not. and he looks at you, looks around, and looks a little shady, and he comes up to you and taps on your window. I like to ask people this question when I talk to them. What do you do? What do you do? Do you roll down the window and give them something? Do you talk to them, or do you just keep the window closed and make sure the doors are locked and bolt on as soon as you can? And I get a lot of different answers to that. But I'll tell you, only one fellow I talked to who's a current member of the board, he actually told me something interesting, that he actually keeps $10 and a couple of ones there just for these people to help them. But that was 1 out of 10 people that I spoke to. Most people I speak to basically said, step on the gas, get going, and let this guy go his merry way. And that's kind of a fear-based thing, but that's what I hear. Now, let's say it was the same exact individual, about 25 years old. Now this time he's dressed in a policeman's uniform, not long hair, very groomed, walks across the street, looks at you, goes like that, just like the other guy did. I forgot to tell you that the other guy went like that too. And goes like that, and then taps on your window. What do you do? Well, 99% of the people, 95% of the people I ask this question say, of course we stop and we roll down the window, keep your hands on the wheel and say, how can I help you, officer? And see what he's up to. And that's because he's an authority. And we're also, in addition to be trained to look at celebrities and influencers, we're also trained to listen to authorities. And I don't know if I have a slide on this, but the point about authority is we're trained to also listen to them. And the common way, that's authority. And like, here's another example of an authority. If you get a voicemail and it's from somebody that you don't know, and it's a salesperson, do you even listen to it? And we all get these voicemails now. And do you even listen to it? But let's say you get a voicemail and it's from your doctor's office, and the doctor's office is, I'll use my name, Alex. The doctor's got your test results and he wants you to come in and go over them with you this afternoon. Well, you can bet I'm going to cancel everything and go in there if my doctor calls me like that. But if it's a sales rep that I don't even know their company, I probably won't even listen to it, which is what most people tell me when I ask them that question as well. So how would you answer that? Probably similar, and that's because of something called authority. And we are trained to listen to influencers, celebrities, and authorities. Now, the common way to become an authority is in the old days, which still works, is to write the book. I always joke around and say, if you are going to write a book, call it the book on ABC topic. So you can always say, hey, I wrote the book on ABC topic. It's kind of joking, but it works. And it's easier to write a book today than it used to be. And I won't get into the details, but it actually just is easier to write a book than it used to be. And if you go into any kind of arrangement, whether you're an internal executive or an external technology provider or consultant, writing a book makes you more credible, makes you more of an authority, and people will listen to you more. So anyways, that's part one. The second part I want to teach is your network matters, and in person is not enough. You need both. I make it a point now to always go out and network every 1 to 2 weeks and get out of here. Get out of the office. I'm on this desk a lot now because the nature of this job, this company that I'm building. But I do go out and meet people, and I know a lot of people that stay out of their desk. And if you work in a company, for goodness sakes, you definitely want to get out. And your network matters. And in person is not enough. Ideally, you want to do both. I'm just going to tell you why it matters by way of a story. If you're an internal executive, because I talk to a lot of internal executives, and they say to me, well, I want to do that. I know it's important, but I just got to work. I got this project or that project. And that's a trap. And then I hear from the same executive maybe a year later, and Alex, can you help me? And of course I do. And I introduce them to people and I help them. But if they had just taken the time to build the network before you need it, it's going to do well for you. And you want to build that network and you want to help other people. None of this you haven't heard before. But I am going to tell you, more and more I get these calls as I grow my network. from internal executives, whether a PE, a private equity firm has bought them out, or maybe they're just, sometimes they just get older. I hate to say it, but it happens. And all of a sudden they get the call, or a new CEO or CXO comes in, new sheriff's in town, and they get the call. And so you want to build that before you need to. The other story, before you need it, the other story I want to tell you is about one of our peer advisory members. I can't say who, but he has done a really tremendous job of this. He's built up a large network, both in person and online. And he got a Fortune 100 company called on him. He's a CIO at a major company already. And they offered him multiple seven figures to take this new job. And it's a tremendous amount of money. And he did not take it because he loved where he was working. He was already doing well, but it was significant. But he said that he asked them, why are you paying me this multiple? Why are you offering me this multiple? And they said one of the reasons is because of your network and the fact that you can get out there and speak highly of our organization. And also the fact that you have this vast network that will allow you to attract people to work for you, whether it's teams or partners. And so more and more companies recognize the vital aspect of having a large network. And if you're a consultant or provider, obviously you're going to attract more people, and you can help more people, and start with your relationship first and help more people, and then grow your business. And there's a concept in technology now that you see, I call it CXO-led marketing. It's actually called CEO-led marketing. I call it CXO-led marketing, where you see, and Steve Jobs really started this, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, but you see Sam Altman. And now in Silicon Valley, if you go out and raise money, the investors want to make sure you're willing to become an influencer yourself as a way of driving business to your firm. And it's really smart. And again, if you're more old school and say it's all marketing's job or sales job, you're kind of missing the point, is that you don't have to be, necessarily the sales rep unless it's a small company, and then you really do. But even as a SMB, small or medium-sized company, even a larger company, you want to drive the exposure, drive the attendance, drive the interest, because if it's between one company or another and someone's read your book, or they've watched your listened to podcasts, or you've been on my show, they're going to say, hey, I think that's the swing vote. It's going to happen. It could happen. It could happen for sure. And I get people coming to me just because of what I do. And I have a lot of our board advisor members saying that they're building up their network because of being involved in that. So it's important to do that. So again, if you have an executive brand that's strong and a network that's strong, and there's two options, and all things being equal, the only thing difference is your brand and the network, you have a better chance of winning the opportunity, because people buy from influencers, people buy from celebrities, and people buy from authorities. The way it is. And if you use that to develop a relationship first and help people first, and you'll develop a really good relationship and reputation. And it's all about timing. When someone's ready, they'll come work with you. Last thing I want to share is the era of executive spokesperson. And I mentioned that about the CXO-led marketing. And it's the same for whether or not you're an internal executive or an external provider or consultant. And it really has evolved into that. And again, think Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Sam Altman, Elon Musk. I like to talk about Elon Musk on this topic because he's so wealthy. He doesn't have to do any of this. So any of these guys, well, Steve, God bless his soul, is gone. But Bill Gates, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, they're so wealthy. They don't have to be in front of a camera ever. They can hide. They could be Howard Hughes, right? But they don't. Why don't they? Because they know that if they're out there, always out there, it's a multiple. Whatever they're doing has a multiple to it. And it adds a multiple. So if you just look up CEO-led marketing, it's when a CEO uses their personal brand influence and network to drive revenue. CEOs who prioritize marketing in their growth are twice as likely to have an annual growth of more than 5%. In other words, you're going to do you're twice as likely to have a strong growth, right? So the key benefits of enhancing your brand, your executive brand, is you grow your network, You'll do it better in your current job because you have more contacts to help and get help from. They'll help you get the next job. And if you do market and sell, which is about half, there's a chunk of my audience is internal, a chunk of our audience is external. You'll market and you'll sell more if you do this right. They'll literally come to you. So the first step is to craft your executive brand on LinkedIn and learn how to post. And that's because LinkedIn is where B2B is. So there can be a lot to this, and you can get really confused listening to different people. So I created a simple 3-step process to kickstart our clients to create an executive brand on their profile that works. And I'm happy just to give it to you. If you'd like a complimentary review of your profile in this perspective, along with a short session of the 3 steps, let me know and just go to our site, technologyexecutivesclub.com, click on Discovery Call and set up a Discovery Call, and I'll just help you. Just tell me in the notes that that's what you want, and I'll be happy to help you. If you've seen this video, email me, connect with me on LinkedIn, say, hey, I saw the video, and I'm happy to help you. I hope this was helpful, and there's more to come. See all the videos we talk about today at technologyexecutivesclub.com. If you're watching this, be sure to like, share, and share it with a friend or repost. And don't forget to listen to Technology Executives Review on our Apple podcast, on Spotify podcast, or on our website. And again, you can see all the videos in the podcast at technologyexecutivesclub.com. And soon you'll see the executive branding tips from me there as well. And while you're there, don't forget to join our complimentary Insiders Club. If you want to be involved and if you want to get involved and become a regular on our media network that we're building, again, think of us as almost an HGTV for technology executives and industry executives. Be sure and reach out to me and ask about our Board of Advisors program. The Board of Advisors is the Board of Advisors to the technology community, and will help you enhance your executive brand, build your network, and grow your business, all while helping others. And that's the key to making all this work, is you got to help first. So be sure and book a discovery call on our site or reach out to me. There's my email, Jarett@technologyexecutivesclub.com or 847-837-3900. Thank you for attending, everybody. Thanks to the LinkedIn Live audience. Thanks to our regular webinar participants on WebEx. It's our honor to serve you and your team. I always say that. I always like to close with that because we mean it. And don't forget to join us at technologyexecutivesclub.com. Have a great day, everybody. We appreciate you.